Why struggle through a post-merger integration when you can glide through it? Why deal with the PMI integration challenges when you can overcome them even before they occur? Why move slow when you can move at pace? What are the world's leading PMI experts doing right now to achieve profit-accelerating integrations? This podcast will give you all the answers to these questions and many more. My name is Dudley Peacock, and welcome to the 100 Days and Beyond podcast. Welcome to everyone to our latest show, 100 Days and Beyond, where we tackle the various aspects of merger and integration, or let's call it post-merger integration or post-acquisition integration work. But today we're coming in with a completely different slant. We've got Paul, who's really a marketing expert, I'd say, a guy that really understands marketing and business growth in terms of actually generating new work and so on. And in fact, has dedicated quite a few years around that. But the beauty is that Paul has got, I would say, probably the best of both worlds, because you've been involved in both post-merger integration work and the marketing aspect, and pulling those together, I think, creates a certain element of genius, I think, in terms of the world that we live in. So, Paul, welcome to the show. I mean, when we had our initial chat last week, I thought, wow, okay, this is going to be a really good one. So let's just get some sort of background, give an understanding. You got various, when I look at your LinkedIn profile, there are quite a few things in there that I think is best you explain, because I think the background is just phenomenal. So let's hear it. So let's hear your journey. How did you get into it? What your experiences on, and how did you get to where you are today?
Yeah. Thank you for having me, Dudley. I'm active in post-merger optimization, but also just the period before that, establishing the word of a website or e-commerce site. So that's a very important part of our business. I work with companies establishing growth in their companies, in their markets. But a very important part of my M&A work is digital M&A, and especially website valuation. So I established a method of gauging the worth of a website or an e-commerce site. And that method is being used pre-merger, of course, but also after the merger has taken place. We want to know what is the worth we have acquired, and how can we grow upon that. With website valuation, I like to look under the hood of the website, you can say. So I established 5 main elements that drive worth in a website. It's organic strength, online authority strength, conversion strength, technical strength, and advertising and social strength. So these are the 5 components that make up the worth of a website. And that's my main focus in the whole M&A journey, you can say.
Took myself off mute. So Paul, yes. So that's why I found it fascinating, because most practitioners are a lot more focused on, I would say, blueprints and plans and so on, where you come at it from a completely different angle. You say, where does the value lie in a business in terms of its digital assets? And the valuation of a digital asset is incredibly difficult. How do you value a website? How do you value even the marketing automation that happens in the background? How do you value brand, reach, customer base, customers buying from you on a regular basis as opposed to one-off purchases? I mean, there's a ton of varying things. I know you've broken it down to those 5 different areas, but I'm guessing that even those different areas have really complexities within them that are hard to explain just off the bat. But I
Yes.
thought
Yeah. But
your whole journey really is around taking the M&A side, looking at the valuation. How do you actually value the company in the first instance? And
yeah.
then you talk
Well,
about optimization and the marketing optimization. So it's like, I look at the company, I can value the company, what it's really worth, because often the people that generally value companies or do due diligence or even look at the M&A process are saying, look, it's a great company, it's making money, but is it really making money? Or it's got revenue, but it's got no profit, or it's got or there's no revenue, there's no profit, but in fact, those assets are worth something. I mean, there are so many different scenarios. Let's just paint a bit of picture around that side of things, the valuations and just looking at digital assets as a category that's now become more and more prevalent in the M&A space.
yeah. Yeah, it's a really a great challenge, of course, like you mentioned. Well, I always start with data, of course. Digital is data, so we start with data. But historical data, because all the data is historical, of course, it only takes up a bit of, well, it gives us a view of what has happened in the past up to now. And it's important. And of course, there's data within the website. Or we go to analytics, to all sorts of CRM products or whatever. We can see what has happened up to now within the website. Um, and of course, there are results. With e-commerce sites, it's very obvious. Of course, there are sales, there are profits. You can attribute these profits or sales to the website. It makes a big difference, of course, when you have an e-commerce site or just an information-based website, because then attribution of the results is a big challenge. But we can do that also. But in the end, you come up with results, with financial data, and with data from the website. But when you go through all this data, you can have a look upon the future. You can see what is really under the hood of this website. How much mileage is there still in it? Has it strength or weaknesses altogether? We can gauge that, and that's a different approach than from an accounting approach. That when you only look at historical figures and say, well, this e-commerce site has made up a revenue of let's say 5 million over the last 10 years. You can see an evolution of results. You can multiply that and try to look into the future based upon the historical data. But I want to see within the website if there is still strength enough within the website that can push this revenue, or has it some weaker parts that may tell you, well, we did good up to now, but I see some weak parts that may diminish these revenues in the future. In most cases, the other way around. There's much more strength within a website than you might expect when you only look at historical data. So that's a big difference. In most cases, when you have a growing business and a growing website, there's more strength within the website than you can see only looking at results. But it's not always the case. Sometimes the verdict is that it's a weak website, a weak website, well, relatively speaking.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah. So, I mean, I love the way that the way you explain it, because the traditional approach, and I think that is really to do with where legacy, where valuation methodologies. I mean, when you're doing valuations, you look at DCF and you look at asset, normal assets, less liabilities, or whatever it is, if you're looking at
yeah,
different types of property, equipment, etc. And there's other types of valuation methods, or EBITDA, type this, multiply that and get some multiplier, etc. But if you look at some of the tech companies, even listed tech companies, I mean, sometimes their burn rate, if you like, I mean, it's massive. I mean, they burn millions, if not hundreds of
yeah,
millions or billions, before they start making money, and some of them don't.
yeah, Yeah,
So just paint that picture, because it's often the difficulty in the, it's not a new industry anymore. I mean, we probably in the tech age for around 20 years now, since the
yeah,
dot-com bubble in 99, 2000, or the, that whole Y2K scare that we had, and then it went into, do you remember those?
yeah, I
But
ring it.
but lots has lots has changed since then, but so it's mature, yet it's not that mature. So a lot of software and a lot of, new, let's say, technologies are sold on the idea. It's sold on the dream, the plan, and everybody is wishing for the next unicorn, that
Yeah,
next big thing. And now they go out to market and try to, I mean, all from the beginning, they try to raise, let's say, even just angel funding or private, investors, high net worth people that can put in some cash, and then they go through seed funding, and then it goes through the series A, B, C, etc., in private equity, and hopefully one day they have their big exit.
yeah.
I mean, if you look at that whole life cycle in terms of starting from an idea through to hopefully unicorn status, or a lot of ideas that just sort of just fizzle out, like those little Christmas fizzlers or birthday fizzlers you see that just gone. So tell me a bit about that.
Yes, that's true. It's a very complex market, you could say, and it depends on your goals, what you try to achieve. And of course, there are players in the market. They dream big, and sometimes they only sell a dream. And um, I want to look. That's always my starting point. Looking at the data, so I want to see data. And of course, if someone has a dream, he or she can have a dream. That's no problem. But I want to look at data and see. Well, for instance, when you're just in the beginning of this business cycle, and you're looking for growth, for a third party capital, uh, I want to see, well, what did you do already? What is happening right now? Is there some sort of momentum going on? Is there not only speaking about financial results, but results within the e-commerce platform, the website, or whatever digital asset we are talking about? What is happening? How is the interaction with the public? And all these parts have to be translated within data. I want to see what is happening, and then you can put a price tag on it. And that's of course a difficult part, but I'd like to start with a basic price tag, and this price tag sometimes it's calculated through accountants. They say, well, I figured it all out. This is the price tag I can put on it on this website or platform or whatever it is, based upon financial data. Sometimes it's just a price tag that the market is willing to ask or to pay, depending on who I'm working for. If the investor says, well, I think this is worth this or that, I say, okay, that's my starting point, and we go through the data and see if this starting point, this price tag is valid. Can we sustain that with other data? Can we see when we're looking under the hood of the website if this is a true starting point? And sometimes I have to say, well, I think it's overvalued or undervalued, and of course, then there's always the other parties who say, well, okay, I know what you mean, but I see other things on the way and whatever, because it's a discussion afterwards always. But I always work with data, and I want to see what is happening. I want to see the momentum, and I want to see what is important within this line of business. Is it customer interaction? Is it uh, uh, being able to have a large time share of your potential audience? What is happening? And I want to see the growth within it, and then we can manage to put prices on it.
Yeah, I mean, the different businesses come to mind. I mean, you obviously got the big one, Twitter. Just,
Yeah,
I don't know if it's finished yet, in terms of its deal, but I mean, there's what, 44 billion. 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 44 billi you know,
Yeah.
and it hasn't been properly monetized yet. It's
No,
an asset that's sitting in limbo, yet someone's paying 44 billion for it. I mean, we know who that someone is,
yeah,
but I think the whole thing is wow. I mean, that's a lot of money. I mean, some countries don't even have that as a GDP kind of
yeah,
thing. Yet you're paying that for one asset that's literally a piece of software
yeah,
with a whole lot of people interacting, and we're
yeah,
talking Twitter. I mean, it's just often just seen as sometimes a lot of noise as well, depending on who you talk to. So
yeah,
tell me a bit about that. When
yeah,
you're getting an asset that it perceived, like how do you value something like that?
yeah. Well, then I come back to my five website value drivers: the organic strength, advertising strength, or technical strength, whatever. And then we have one very important strength playing a very big role in a deal like this, and that's the online authority strength. What is your market? What are you going after? And uh, how is your online authority linked to that? Are you really the market leader within this niche or within this market? Or are you just playing second, third, or fourth based roles? And for this instance, with Twitter, of course, they have a very large online authority. They are on top of their game, and you can say, well, it's a very large market. We can monetize it with all sorts of things in the coming years. That's also a very important thing to look at, and that's why marketing skills are playing a large role in these valuations. Uh, what are the possibilities? What can we do with it? And of course, you, for instance, this Twitter example, you can compare it with Facebook and what are they doing with it. You can compare it with LinkedIn, with other social media, and see what is happening, see what their revenues are, and you you have to look through that, but you have to start with, of course, the data. Is there still growth within, let's say, this example, Twitter? Is it declining, or what's happening, and how's the interaction with the market? And then you come up with some conclusion, and then it's about the vision of the one who is buying or
Yeah,
interested
and
in
then
investing.
trying to get
That's a very important part, of course.
yes. So this comes back to the age old. I'm going back to sort of merger acquisition, integrations, and so on. And this comes back to that big debate where sort of valuation is in the eye of the beholder.
Yeah,
If you like, I mean, it's like what do they say? Beauty is in the eye of the
yeah,
beholder. It's the valuation, and often if you see potential, you're going to be more optimistic. If you see this as a strategic move that's less potential but more of it's competition. I mean, Microsoft used to do that a lot. They go out and they buy a company and they just crush it,
yeah,
just get rid of the competition. So I mean, there's like they'll get that business regardless. That's what they're going to do. So it really depends on the sort of the eye of the beholder. But I'm going to come back to that legacy way where the value of a business or the valuation does that sit in the current state of affairs, or does that sit in what is potential in that business? So what I what I'm sort of always stuck between is I can only pay for what the business is worth right now, year in now. Doesn't matter how much additional value I'm going to bring in terms of my skills, my people, my talent, or whatever I'm bringing in, or any other type of market direction I want to take the business in. But that is my input. That is not the current business. So the
yeah,
valuation is very difficult because you're saying, but I'm not going to pay for the potential I'm bringing.
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
only
yeah.
going to pay for the value,
Yeah.
what it is right now.
Yeah, but in some digital assets, like I call them, like I used to call them, is that there is potential within the asset you are buying. And of course, you have to add your skills and your ideas to it. But it's like buying a used car. You know, it's you can buy an old timer, and you say, "Well, I'm into buying old timer cars." And but there's a difference. What kind of brand or type or whatever you are buying. You can say, "I love all old cars that are older than 30 years or whatever." But then there's a difference. What what is the potential of some old timer cars compared to others? And which cars have potential to grow? And of course, you can say, "Well, I'm a very smart restorer of old cars. I can do all the technical stuff. I can put in new engines and whatever." But if you want to put your skills into it, you better put it in the right car and not in the wrong car. That's a bit what I'm what I mean.
And then that's a very good way of saying it. And I think that's always the difficulty. And I'm finding that in the digital space, if you like, or this this online space, often a lot more a lot more weighting, I think, is put into future, is into growth and where this company could go, as opposed to the value right now. Because some of the valuations, if you go in a truly accounting valuation, it is just there's no value in it.
Yeah,
But if you say, okay, 3 or 5 years from now, that's a growing market. I mean, I've
yeah,
been talking to guys that are looking to do, let's say, vitamins and things like that. And yes, it's a flooded market, but they're looking at a specific type of custom vitamin. So you could go in and put in your details, and they'll send you tests and all that, and they'll manufacture a vitamin tablet just for you and your body and your
yeah,
diet and your whatever it is, your goals and so on. And so that's a different way of doing it, but that's in progress, let's say.
yeah,
And that's the potential. And they've created the way that the website, the let's call it the software, has been developed. So you can input all that stuff, but they haven't really got a market yet.
yeah,
So they've got the technology, but no market. So that's where your five
yeah.
sort of components come in, where you're saying, okay, well, it's strong over there, but it's not so strong over there. It needs work over there, etc. And that's how you get to your valuation.
Yeah.
Is that a fair assumption?
That's a fair assumption, yes. And you're right that the 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 investing part or the buying party uh, can have some sometimes wild dreams about well, we can do all this stuff, but without seeing, well, is there a market for it, and how can we market our thing we have to add on this this asset we are buying. And that's a very great challenge, of course. And I must say, sometimes people are too optimistic about market potential, and too optimistic about their technical skills.
Mhm.
That's always well, that's sometimes it's a discussion that I say to my customer. Well, this all looks good, but I think you overvalue your skills or your or the way to go from here to there. You know, that's always a very difficult part. You know, to go from here to there. Um,
Yeah. So, so,
uh,
so leading on from the going from here to there. So let's go back to the M&A and integration and so on. So the purpose of integration or post-merger integration, post-acquisition integration is value capture, synergy creation. I mean, all those fancy words and so on. And it's about how do I extract value out of the entity? But you enter in, especially in a lot of the things that you do, this marketing, this digital optimization, this all this type of thing. I'm going to, let's say, not me, but let's say the M&A team decide they're going to buy a legacy business. And I'm going to just let's do a
mm,
case study. So let's say a case study is um, it is a company that does retail, and they retail building supplies. So they do pipe fittings, cement, bricks, roofs, you name it, anything in the building supply. And they've got both B2C customers. They also have these trade customers that come in and that are regular builders and that would open accounts, etc. So that, let's call it the legacy business. They've not yet gone online.
Yeah.
Okay. So now the optimization and the value creation would be, there's a great business that's got, let's say, 200, 300 stores all over the place. So it's a
Mhm.
decent business.
Yeah.
They're selling a lot. They've got good brand identity. They've got everything like that. And now you've got this position where I'm going to buy that business. And I think the potential is not so much opening new stores, but it's now taking it online, going from
Yeah.
an old brick and mortar business
Yeah.
to an online business. So I see that as a potential. I could probably do something with it, but let me throw that case study at you and see
Yeah.
how you cope
Yeah.
with that.
Yeah. Um, what I would do in this particular case is always start with the core business and this part of your business that is really strong and where you can put as much value to the market as you can. So um, it's a great example with building materials because you have a lot, all sorts of building materials. You can go online with all these elements right away if you want, no problem. But the question is that a smart way to approach the market? Maybe you can start with some product categories, some product market combinations, and go from that because um, online always prefers niche players, always prefers specialists, and you have to think about that. And another very important thing to consider is what is your market, and of course, geographical speaking, that's very important because I always see this. I call it mistake that you think, well, now I add an online shop, I can conquer the whole country or maybe the whole of Europe or whatever, no problem. And of course, technical, it's all possible. You can do that. No problem whatsoever. It will cost some money, but no problem.
Mm.
Um, but I always say, well, when you start with your core, and your core in this case is where are you now located? Where is some traction going on? And try to add that onto the online market by saying to your customers, well, we have also an online shop now you can buy relatively easy, but go from these local points of strength and grow from there, not going nationwide directly, because it will take a marketing cost a lot of if you can't expect to put up a shop, an online shop, and expect that traffic is coming right to the front door from day one. That's not going to happen. You have to advertise. You have to really invest in it. And the closer you are to what you are doing right now, the better traction you will have with existing customers going to new customers.
I love that answer because that's exactly, I mean, I actually have a case like that, exactly the same as that. And it's, I mean, this is a few years in the making. It's not my company, but it's one that I've been observing, and it has taken them always a lot longer than they expected. They've
Yeah,
not invested enough money as they should have in the
yeah,
marketing, and it's not as simple as just creating an online store.
no,
And that leads me into the next question. Um, when you come, I mean, you got a serious set of marketing skills on you. I mean, we're just talking. You talk a lot about data and those five
yeah,
sort of component parts, but you got a very powerful marketing mindset as well. If I look at online businesses and so on, a component often, if it's a product based business, is the fulfillment side of things. And most people forget about that. So you got all these digital assets
yeah,
floating around. So yes, you got payment gateways and you got shopping carts and graphics and and landing pages and
yeah,
sales funnels and newsletters and catalogs. I mean, you name it, you've just got everything organized. But there's this layer of real life that happens. You still got to get the product
yeah,
once the purchase is made out to the customer. There's this fulfillment layer. Now,
yeah,
tell me a little bit about that, because that I think often trips the people up in terms of the
yeah.
valuation side of things. Give me a little bit of your view on that.
Yeah, now you're talking about the headache part of doing online business. Fulfillment, of course, is a very big challenge, always overlooked. Um, it starts with having a good back office that is able to conversate with customers, to help them buy, to help them with their problems. And of course, when you go international, that's always overlooked. Well, I'm based in the Netherlands, small country, so all companies want to go to Germany, to France, to Italy, whatever, to the UK, of course. But you have to have a back office that speaks all these languages. You can easily translate online stores in all sorts of languages, no problem. But there are going to be problems. There are going to be practical problems with customers, and you have to solve them. And you have to solve them by speaking to them, by emailing them, or whatever. And you need to have this language thing in order. That's international. If you're not going international, of course, fulfillment still is a big headache. And you really need to start. I have some examples. I've worked with companies that like 10 years ago were just totally different companies like they are now today. They had that's, for instance, a company in the B2B market. They had sales representatives. They had locations all over the country. And when you go to that business right now, they don't have sales reps anymore. They have a back office. They don't have all sorts of businesses on different locations. You have one very large distribution
Center.
location, yes,
Mm.
and everything is automatized. Robots are going through it, whatever. But going from this to that, um, it took a lot of energy, of course. And what you have to do is to do it um, uh, in a smart way, not going too fast. Um, uh, you first have to be able to handle all this fulfillment by yourself or your team, and then going the other steps in hiring automation, robots or whatever. So that's a very difficult a journey to go on, but do it easy, and always have in mind that it will take more time than you think. It will take up more money than you would think. But you need, what's very important is that every step of the way, you need to see the progress. You need to see the progress
Mm.
within the data, within revenues, within sales, and then you can invest all along the way, not putting all this money right in from the start, but take it up slowly.
Yeah, because there's a lot of learning that has to take place in
Yes,
that process.
that's the
There's
part.
a
Learn.
lot of trial and error, trial and error, trial and error, trial and error.
Yeah,
Because you also need to bring on partners. I mean, you can't necessarily buy a fleet of vehicles or have tax experts, especially cross border.
yeah,
You can't just all of a sudden just hire a whole lot of skills or assets in, and all of a sudden you've got a warehouse. Going from a people driven warehouse, for instance, or a
yeah,
fulfillment center to I think they call them black centers or dark centers, where there's no human beings,
yeah,
there's no lights even, because the robots don't need lights.
yeah,
And you got these robots picking and packing and distributing, and just conveyor belts and everything just
yeah,
moving. And nobody goes inside unless something's broken, just to do
yeah.
some maintenance.
Dangerous to go inside.
Yeah, yes, exactly, because it's all dark.
Yeah,
Yeah, but I think just to move from human to there is already a big jump. I mean,
yeah,
that's not even in the goal right in the start. In the
yeah,
start, it's literally, let's just get the right, let's call it core software and the core scanners and just the right trained staff. And let's start with a small 2 or 3, 4
Yeah.
smaller distribution centers and then eventually bring it into one. So there's a process. So when I come back to, I mean, the topic of our conversation is 100 days and beyond. And so we're talking about mergers, acquisition, integrations. So what happens after that is if there's a plan to improve or increase,
Mhm.
let's say product-based business distribution, etc., there are a lot more pitfalls for, and that's for the audience to think this one through. With a digital type of business, there's still a physical element, but that physical element often, especially product-based business, there's a fat physical element is often hidden to the eye unless you've actually gone through that process of understanding and actually living the nightmare of fulfillment, because it can get pretty bad.
Yeah.
If we look on the services, or let's call it software or software as a service, even, or even just service-based businesses, so consulting, accounting, and other firms that are starting to render their services online. Doctors I see are going online. I see there's a whole range of health and other mental experts and training courses, and I mean, you name it. There's a whole other sphere that's non-product, intangible related.
Yeah.
So now you can still go online and serve the world. But I think you said something very important earlier, and that's in the online space and in the digital world, you're looking at niching. Niching is probably the only thing you can do to actually get ahead, but also survive in this marketplace that we're in. Tell me a bit about that. I mean, we're talking about 100
Yeah.
days and beyond. It's obviously going to take a lot more than 100 days to get
Yeah.
proper fulfillment and improvements and all
Yeah.
these synergy capture. So you're probably looking at post-merger integration for a product-based digital business. You're looking at 2 to 3 years, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah.
When you,
Maybe more.
so yeah,
Yeah. Oh, maybe more.
or even more, or
Yeah.
even more.
Yeah.
And it's an ongoing thing, isn't it? I mean, but yeah, if you look at the services side of things, tell me a little bit about that. I mean, what's your
Yeah.
view on that?
Well, one thing, like you said, niching will be is very important, and in my opinion, will be more important in the coming years. Um, uh, and I think also that it has an impact on M&A deals. I think there will be more refocusing on core business, and I think that will be a wise step. And at the end result, you will see that businesses will sell some product market combinations to other parties and invest more in their core business. So that's a very important part, niching. With service-based companies, there's also a challenge. I've worked with some law firms, and well, with law firms, most of the new customers are coming from online sources, social media, or of course Google search. So they have to be visible there on these platforms and search engines. And one of the challenges to mention is that I asked the lawyers of some of these firms to put on an article every month on the website within their specific niche. And of course, the first thing they say to me, well, I have to write this article. I have to think about it. Yes, that's what I ask you. And who's paying for that? I'm a lawyer, it's
You paid for my time.
yeah, that's my business. I'll say, well, it's for free. You have to do this, but I will show you that your efforts and all your energy will make money, and I can show you that to the data. You make this article, and after a few months, I come back and I'll show you what kind of traffic this has generated, what kind of leads these articles have generated. So you're not doing it for free. You're not doing it for whatever. But that's one example. You have to show that all the efforts they are putting into it, that they result in leads, in customers and whatever. And then, you have them with you, because that was one example of a large law firm, that me, the marketing team of the law firm, everyone was on the same page, but not the lawyers who had to do their work.
And they say,
But that-
I charge, I don't know, X thousand euros an hour, and
yeah,
now you want me to give this away for free? Are you crazy?
yeah,
You can't do that.
that's the thing. Yeah. But with service-based businesses, of course, that's not that scalable as with products. So you have to look through that also. You can say, well, it's a people business. We have only this amount of service we can supply. And then again, I say, well, start relatively small, depending on who you are and what you want to go for. But if it's not scalable, if human beings are the bottleneck, you can say, well, you have to be very keen where to put your money and where to put your energy. And that's a bigger challenge than with products or with software products, that you say, well, I can scale this, whatever. It's just a software product. Whoever puts there on the bottom on the button and orders it, I don't care, but that's a different approach.
I want to ask you also, with your marketing hat on, and also coming back into the digital space, and even business in general, when you're doing M&A work, you'll look at the assets as if they are non-living things, right? So you'll look at them as things that can grow organically, etc.
Yeah.
But still, they're not human beings. But when you're starting to get into the space where you have personas that drive brands. So if you name a name, you could probably link it to a product. I mean, just for the sake of the audience and for ease, if you say Steve Jobs, you know exactly what product we're talking about. If if you say Elon Musk, you know exactly what products you're talking about. So when it comes to acquisitions, now let's say, for instance, let's go back to, we already spoke about Twitter, and it's all about Elon Musk and everyone always talking about him. But if we go back and we say, all right, let's say he wants to sell the Tesla.
Yeah.
He wants to offload Tesla we've seen that as soon as he does something in the share price,
Yeah.
there's always an impact. I mean, if he just tweets something, ironically, down goes the price. If he does something in a positive way, up goes the price. So it's all about him. Now, if
Yeah.
you go and now, what are you actually buying? Because are you buying, now the persona might leave.
Yeah. That's
Now,
that,
now you're going to relook at the valuation, surely.
yeah. You cannot put that into figures or in data. That's this intangible thing, this intangible asset that is coming with it. And well, I always think that that's a very difficult part. In generally, I don't like that a lot of persona is attached to a company, or to a digital asset or whatever, because, well, what is it? It's of course it is there. It's a psychological effect, and it plays a role, but I cannot say what happens when this person is not involved in it anymore. Is it going to have a positive or a negative impact? Um, uh, I cannot put it into data or into figures. Um, um, and in generally, I'd say, well, it's not a very good thing to have. Of course, you as this, if you are this persona, of course, you can say, well, I have magic powers or whatever. It's true. I think it is, but, well, maybe you should downplay that a little bit. I think.
But if we just go down one level, then obviously, when you're doing M&A and you're doing post-merger integration, the team that stay behind often are critical to the success of the ongoing survival of the company, but also, from the integration point of view, bringing different companies together, making sure that you are extracting the value, but you also making sure you keep key talent. But
Yeah.
one of the key things that often get looked at are who's going to be the jockey, the driver, or the drivers of this entity once the acquisition takes place. And I mean, that's now less persona, but more around their skills and abilities and so on. Would you say that in the digital world, that still is the case? Or is it less so? I mean, has digital potentially become more important than the jockeys? Or would you say it's the same as legacy businesses?
Well, I think within the digital market, the human part is underrated. So I'm always in favor to stress the human part, and with post merger integration, of course, that goes for all acquisitions. There's this existing team that worked on the old websites, on the old company, and they did a good job in most cases. And of course, there's this new entity coming in, and he or she has different plans. So, um, and again, I would stress then, don't take it too fast, too far in the coming months, and
Yeah.
and keep that human part alive, because in the end, when I'm looking at data, it's not data, it's human behavior I'm looking at. So that's one thing. It's always human behavior. It's not a click. It's a human who is clicking. And the same goes for the company. It's all the things I see in the data has been established by the people who worked on this business, and so in the end, it's always a human thing. It's so don't see it as clicks, don't see it as data, don't see it as uh, um, uh, all possibilities on the technical side. It's human. The human factor is so important, and in almost all, well, in many cases overlooked. Many cases.
Yeah, it's almost as if there's almost become a blind spot. I believe anyway that just because you can change human behavior into bits and bytes, zeros and ones,
Yeah,
and you can look at it on a spreadsheet or graphs and
yeah,
so on. Now, all of a sudden, it dehumanizes
yeah,
human behavior into a bunch of stats and little on and off switches,
yeah,
zeros and ones. I think there's a big problem there, and I think that's where M&A practitioners and especially the integration practitioners, in my mind, need to be a lot more focused on saying, let's not get distracted by all this data, although data is important, but remembering that data comes from human behavior,
yeah.
and let's not get distracted for data's sake. Let's make sure that there's a human behavior, and that's a massively valid point.
Yeah. And that's a challenge because there are a lot of uh, call them WizKids or whatever. They think that it's data and we can manipulate this data. If we see this data, we can go from here to there by putting some strings or whatever. Um, in the end, it's not the case. We need to have the human factor. I think on on the first spot in every business, not only with for the people who you are working with, but the customer. Don't forget the customer. It's not a click. It's not just data. These are persons, and I want to see the interaction with this with the human behavior of real human persons. And sometimes, like the example from Twitter, because that's the thing going on. We mentioned Twitter, and the s- the problem right now is that Elon says, well, there's not, I don't see that much human behavior. There are a lot of accounts that are just, software bits and bytes, but there's not human behavior behind it with fake accounts or whatever. So
Mm.
there also is playing this thing a very important role.
Yeah, all these bots
Yeah,
and AIs and all that. I
yeah,
mean, even LinkedIn at one stage, hopefully they'll keep cutting down, are these bots that are just firing out
yeah,
messages, and
yeah.
you get random messages and you not even, properly targeted, as not even personal. And I think people are pushing back. I think there's been a big pushback against this depersonalization, and
Yeah.
people want to be taken into account individually. I
I
want
think
to
that
ask
that's
you
one
about.
of the biggest challenges of the next 10 to 20 years for all the people on earth. I think keep it human, keep it human. Digital is terrific. It's great. Keep it human.
Or keep it, yeah, actually become more human again, because I
Yeah,
think we've actually swayed, and then
yeah,
obviously there's a whole lot of other things that have gone on recently where there's a lot more noise about all kinds of, flavor of the month,
yeah,
issues around diversity and inclusion and
yeah,
all that, and it's almost like the minorities are leading the majorities,
yeah,
and the main people, the regular people out there, the 99% of the people generally are almost unheard,
yeah,
but they're on the periphery. There are maybe 1 or 2%,
yeah,
that are very, very noisy. So
yeah,
therefore it gets extrapolated as everybody. And it's like, no, in fact, there's
yeah,
probably a much larger of a silent uh, base out there that just carry on with their lives,
yeah,
that are buying, that are clicking, that are engaging with brands, that are really driving the economies. It's not necessarily the outliers, and
yeah.
you've got to be very, very careful with how you read
Yeah, and then of course in the online market space, the one with the largest voice or whoever speaks out is getting the lights on him or her. But you have to look through that. Yeah,
That's the
yeah,
hard part. That's how you're gonna be able to see value. We're coming to the end of the podcast, Paul, and I've thoroughly enjoyed our conversation, and thank you very much for your thoughts so
Bobby.
far. I want to maybe just go a bit more personal and say, you got a very strong internet, or sorry, not internet, digital background, marketing, and so on. And I was hoping that you could share maybe just one or two golden nuggets, a few sort of wise words, just a few ideas, just for the audience in general, just from your point of view. How do you see things, and so on?
Yeah. Well, we talked about the word earlier. Focus on the niche. That's so important. And we come from a period that there is a lot of money available, a lot of credit available, and you can where you could easily enlarge your business with also adding more product categories, more markets, whatever. I think we are entering a different phase within the economy, within the way we do business. And I would suggest focus on your core business and think about what is driving you, where your passion is, and where you can add the most value to your market. And think about this value. Value is so important. Think about what you're special about and what you can add, in which way you can help your customers. Helping is very important, and that means sometimes to resize your company to focus on these parts that where your heart lies and where where in essence your future lies. So really refocus on your core business and on your passion as an entrepreneur or as a company, because a company can also have a passion. If you look to the company and the people who are working there, if you ask them what's the what do you like of this company, well, you can come up with some sort of the same answers, and that's the way to go forward.
Yeah, and I suppose the big drive for growth is less important than what should be the drive for value, for
Yeah,
contribution, for being human. I think we spoke about that as well.
yeah,
Taking people into account,
yeah,
and not letting the peripheral noise overcome your view of that there's still real people out there.
Yeah.
And don't let the noise drown out the real things. I want to just talk a little bit about you. I mean, Paul, you're a guy, you've had a really good career. Clearly you've worked incredibly hard in your life, and you've built up a momentum. Tell me a little bit about your company, and about you, family wise, etc. How do you balance the two? I mean, let's talk about your company. What have you done? What do you
Yeah.
do right now? And
Well,
let's go into sort of balancing, and how do you,
yeah.
keep yourself sane in this crazy world that we live in.
That's a very very difficult challenge. But well, what I do right now is I still work as an online marketing consultant, and through this knowledge, I also have a company called Webwords Partners. So with Webwords Partners, we analyze data and establish the worth of websites and e-commerce sites. So that's it has all. It has to do with each other, but it's a different part of my business life. Well, as a person, my company is based in the Netherlands, but I live in Belgium, so I cross the border every day. When I do that, sometimes I work from home, but in most cases I cross the border. And trying to keep sane in this world is to look beyond the business you are working and look at how society is changing, or is pushed to change to a level you don't want, because I think that's happening too. And we talked about the human factor, and I believe in humankind. I believe in humanity, and I think for the coming years that will be the real challenge. It's not digital that is important. It's not all the things you hear or read or whatever. It's humanity. And if I would say something, well, let's stay human and focus on that, because that's our future, the humanity. That's what I believe.
No, that's wonderful. I'm actually just sharing your company Webworth Partners on the screen for those
Okay.
of the people that can see that. I just want to say thank you very much, Paul. I think for me, this has been fascinating because it's a different slant, different way of looking at post-merger integrations, at a world that's becoming more and more digitized. And any company that doesn't have at least one or two bits of software,
Yeah.
I don't think you can find them anymore. If you do, I mean, that'll be very, 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 very sparse. Even at the very basic level, people carry around smartphones with some sort of app on it that they do something on, even if it's just, sending a text message to their customers saying, "Hey, I'm available. Could you want to buy?"
Yeah.
All the way through to very, very complex systems. Paul, thank you very, very much. I really do appreciate you coming on the show today. Fascinating conversation. Please come back at some stage in the future, and let's see how you progress and what's happened going forward. All
Yeah.
the best of luck with your go forward journey, and hopefully, everything turns out well, and it looks like it's going very well for you and your company right now,
Yeah.
and best of luck for the future.
Well, thank you, Dudley, for having me. I like it very much. Always like to discuss things about the way forward. So, and you have a great show. Keep on doing the great stuff you're doing.
I will do. Thank you. And everyone, you can get hold of Paul, I think on LinkedIn. You have your profile is on
Yeah.
LinkedIn, and obviously you can Google that. What's the website? What website?
The website is webwordspartners.com.
.com. Okay.
Webwordspartners.com.
Webworthpartners.com.
Yes.
So that's like that. But Webworth Partners, like you see on the ticker,
Yeah.
webworthpartners.com. And thank you very much, Paul. Have a super day, and we'll catch up with you soon.
Thank you, Dudley. Bye-bye.
All right. Hi, everybody. This is Dudley again. And if you need help with a future or existing post-merger integration, I want to invite you to arrange a free, no obligation meeting with us. During the meeting, we'll find out exactly what you need, what your challenges are, and we'll explain how our unique PMI slipstream method can help you. Simply call us or visit mergerintegration.co.uk. That's mergerintegration.co.uk, or come to our website, skillfulpursuit.com.